Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone's having a wonderful time tonight. We had a great cocktail hour, and dinner was fantastic, so I hope you're all having some great conversation. My name is Catherine Brown. I'm an anchor at WRAL, and honored to be here tonight to be a part of this really wonderful event, the Raleigh Hall of Fame, and induction of some extraordinary people in our community. So with that, let me give you a little background. The mission of the Hall of Fame is to induct individuals and nonprofit organizations, past and present, who have made significant contributions to the city of Raleigh. Since 2005, the Raleigh Hall of Fame has recognized more than 200 inductees who have helped shape our capital city. And tonight, we are pleased to recognize 8 individuals, 2 nonprofit organizations, and 2 centennial inductees into the 2019 Raleigh Hall of Fame. Before we begin the program, we'd like to thank our generous title sponsor, Capital Broadcasting Company and WRAL TV, for its work on the extraordinary inductee videos that you'll see this evening. They are tremendous, and thank them for their continued support of the Hall of Fame over the years. Yes. To begin our program this evening, I am very pleased to introduce the Mayor of Raleigh, Nancy McFarland.
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. I appreciate that very much. And good evening. I'm very excited to be here tonight to help celebrate the 2019 Raleigh Hall of Fame inductees. I want to take just a moment to recognize other city officials. I think our Mayor Pro Tem Corey Branch is here, maybe. Gail Smith, our city clerk. I saw Gail. And Damian Graham, is Damian here? He is our communications director. And Sarah Baker from the city manager's office. So thank you all so much for being here tonight. You know, tonight's celebration honors those individuals and organizations that have made significant contributions to the city of Raleigh. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the work of the Raleigh Hall of Fame Board of Directors and the Advisory Board in support of this year's program. It's a great program. I look forward to this every year, and I just want to say thank you all so much for all the work you do to put this together. You know, Raleigh is a great community, one that is fortunate to have so many people that are dedicated and really spend so much of their lives giving back to make the city what it is. As I reflect on my time leading the city, and this is my last Hall of Fame awards ceremony, I just really can't tell you how much I appreciate all that our residents do, all that our residents have done and continue to do. Raleigh is exceptional. It is a world-class city. We all know that, but it really is because of the people, and I think we've heard that a couple times tonight. Raleigh would not be the place that it is without each and every one of you, and especially to tonight's inductees. The individuals and organizations we're honoring tonight span generations and all stand out for their commitment and service to the city of Raleigh. As a growing community, we look forward to the future, and we must remember that we are who we are due to the contributions of those that came before us. Tonight is an opportunity to reflect upon and celebrate our accomplishments in the recent and not so recent past, the individuals and the organizations that have contributed greatly to our community's success. I want to commend and thank all of tonight's inductees for their hard work, their time, and their effort for the city of Raleigh. You have helped shape and influence our community in so many positive ways. So on behalf of the city of Raleigh and my fellow council members, I want to congratulate all of the 2019 Raleigh Hall of Fame inductees. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do to make Raleigh great. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, now it is time to meet the inductees into the 2019 Raleigh Hall of Fame. Our first inductee is Dianne Blackwell Davidian. For 4 decades, Dianne has dedicated herself to volunteering in a vast array of areas, including healthcare, education, the arts, human services. She's served in many leadership capacities for nonprofit organizations, including ones inducted into this very Hall of Fame, such as the Raleigh Fine Arts Society and the Raleigh Little Theater. But it is the Junior League of Raleigh where she's served the longest reign, from member to sustainer to everything in between. Dianne has further exhibited a passion for this city in her work with the Raleigh City Museum, helping to preserve Raleigh's history for future generations. Let's take a look at all she's done and what folks are saying about her.
Dianne Blackwell Davidian is the consummate volunteer. She has been working to make the City of Raleigh better for probably close to about 40 years. And to most people, the term professional volunteer is probably an oxymoron. And I would agree with that in most cases. But I think in Dianne's case, she absolutely is the professional volunteer. There have been so many incredibly successful organizations that Dianne has worked so hard for. Junior League of Raleigh, Safe Child, Methodist Home for Children, Raleigh City Museum, Museum of Natural Sciences, the Poe Center, Kids Voting, Raleigh Little Theater, and I'm sure I haven't even scratched the surface with all those. So I've given a lot of thought to what is it that makes Dianne different and why has she been so successful? But I think the thing that makes her the most successful and most valued as a volunteer is the fact that she brings so much to the table. Not only does she bring her heart and her passion for the organization, she brings her experience, she brings her level-headedness. There's nobody that can read a financial sheet better than Dianne Davidian. She's just really the total package. If Dianne Davidian is on your board of directors, she is with you for the long haul. She is with you for the big decisions. And she's not just going to dabble in it and then you don't see her again. She is going to be a part of every important decision. And I know from, especially for the Junior League of Raleigh for the past 25 years, every big decision we've made, she was a part of. I think Dianne has always seen an incredible potential in Raleigh. And maybe when some of the rest of us didn't even see it. I think she was several steps ahead of us. And I think the potential, the excitement, all of that just really appeals to her. And that's one reason she's been willing to work so very hard.
Our second inductee, Van Eure, is a legacy of former Raleigh Hall of Famers Alice and Thad Eure Jr., and has made her own mark on the city with compassion and dedication. After opening and teaching at a school in Kenya after college, Van returned to Raleigh to run the Beefeaters' Haven, or as most of us know it, the Angus Barn. While she, her husband, and children remain active at the barn, Van is still committed to education at heart, arranging internships for local university students and funding a scholarship at St. Mary's School. Van was recently awarded the National Restaurant Association's Legacy Award, or Legends Award, which honors an individual whose lifelong contributions to food service and hospitality industry has been extraordinary. Van has been recognized by countless other organizations as well, both in the area and nationally, but it is the Foundation of Hope, a charity founded by her parents, that fuels her philanthropic heart. The foundation just recently held its annual Walk for Hope, which supports research and treatment of mental illness.
If there is anyone in this city who personifies Raleigh, North Carolina, hospitality, graciousness, and authenticity and compassion, it's Van Eure. The tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who've come to the Angus barn over the years. Of course, it has sustained her family, but I think it's more importantly than that, it has helped sustain Van emotionally and personally because of the human contact she has with the patrons. Van makes those people feel special, and it's not an act, it's for real. She understands that people work hard and struggle, and one of the things they want is a nice meal, an evening of something that's special, and Van Eure lets them know, one by one, whether she has ever met them before, that they matter. Of course, there's the walk. There is a common denominator of people wanting to know someone else not so much feels their pain, but understands their place in life. And together, with all of those t-shirts walking down Glenwood, all throughout that area, people have this sense of belonging to one another. The Eure family made that possible and continues to make that possible. Van Eure has made everyone who has ever met her a better person. She doesn't set about to do that. She wants to make sure you know that you matter in the world, you matter to her, and you deserve to be respected.
Our next inductee, Sabrina Goode, has something in common with one of our centennial inductees. You'll hear about that a little later. As a sixth-generation descendant of the founders of Oberlin Village, an African-American Reconstruction settlement established in 1866, Sabrina saw to it that its history has been preserved and not forgotten. Sabrina formed and helped lead the Friends of Oberlin Village, a nonprofit that reaches out to other groups in the community to help restore the voice and integrity of Oberlin. The Friends of Oberlin Village have won many historical and preservation accolades under Sabrina's leadership. By her vision and pride in preserving a part of Raleigh's past, Sabrina ensures that Raleigh's future citizens will not forget.
First of all, thank you for letting me share my knowledge of Sabrina Goode, our executive director of the Friends of Oberlin Village. And I think that she is worthy of this honor because of her leadership, because of her vision, because of her ability to bring people together to work for the community. Back in 2011, we were sitting at my grandmother's dining room table, and we knew that historically people had taken care of the cemetery, families had cleaned it, that had the family plots, and we thought that the few of us that were there was Sabrina Goode, Carson Turner, and myself, and we thought we could just tell these stories about the people that were buried in the cemetery. There's about 645 people. And it was Sabrina who said, oh, this is too big. This is too big. We will need some help. And from that's how Friends of Oberlin started the nonprofit. It was her vision that put all this together. And she has a great gift for just pulling out people's gifts She's a beautiful person, kind, generous, driven. She's a risk taker, very organized. I think think about it. We started in 2011, this is 2019, and we are still growing and blossoming. Just that, you said passion. I just think she has a vision and an understanding of what the organization is supposed to do and to keep us on track with that. That takes a strong personality. She's a family person. Family's important to her. She's spiritual. She's very successful in her career as well, and she's a good friend. She really exemplifies a North Carolinian who is knowledgeable, gives back to the community, and just deserves to be recognized for this contribution.
Our next inductee is Greg Hatem. He's become synonymous with historic revitalization in downtown Raleigh. One can hardly go downtown and not pass one of his restaurants or revitalized buildings. Working through his companies, Empire Properties, Empire Eats, and Empire Hard Hat Construction, Greg has created an exciting eating environment and gathering places in downtown Raleigh. His vision began in 1995 upon seeing the empty Coca-Cola warehouse building for sale in Raleigh's warehouse district. A year later, he landed Jillian's as a tenant, and the snowball of rejuvenization of Raleigh's warehouse district began. The Duck and Dumpling, the Pit, the Raleigh Times, City, Gravy, and most recently, the Mecca are Empire restaurants, each with their own distinct character. As Greg creates these businesses, he gives as much back to our community and its citizens. There is more to Greg than just Empire.
As a former mayor, I can tell you, if one were to make a list of all the good people who have transformed downtown Raleigh in recent years, Greg Hatem would lead that list. Greg is probably best known for Empire Eats. He started a series of restaurants, all with different concepts, sometimes by himself, sometimes with others. The one he is most proud of is called City, which honors his Lebanese heritage and his grandmother. His grandparents came to North Carolina 2 generations ago, and Greg recalls growing up with all those Lebanese relatives and friends around him in Roanoke Rapids. What is not known about Empire Properties and Empire Eats is that it is one of the bigger employers downtown. There are 550 employees. All pay a living wage and all offer health insurance. Greg has served on all kinds of boards and charities, from the Downtown Raleigh Alliance to the Tryon Palace Commission. Empire Eats has catered all kinds of events. He really has been very active in the community throughout his career. What really motivates Greg is the challenge of a hard project. A project with structural problems, a project with hard-to-save historic features, a project with expenses everywhere. Those are the kind of projects that really get him going, and those are the ones he's made a success in downtown Raleigh. Greg really sweats the details, both small and big. He also cares tremendously about his family, of course his wonderful wife Samantha and his 2 kids. And Greg has really brought along a whole generation of folks who are now involved in downtown Raleigh and doing all kinds of different things. He's been a leader and a mentor to so many folks. Greg Hatem has really changed the built environment downtown by preserving so many historic buildings and their historic character, and also providing an adaptive reuse. Those buildings will be here years and years from now, as will Greg's big spirit and really humble way to approaching all kinds of challenging problems.
Our next inductee, Robert L. Roddy Jones, was born at the old Rex Hospital and was raised with construction and community in his blood. Roddy's father, C.B. Jones, and great-uncle, Jim Davidson, built many of the signature homes that are still standing today in Raleigh's Hayes Barton and Country Clubs Hills neighborhoods. In 1973, when he became president of Davidson and Jones, Roddy was instrumental in changing the firm's focus from residential to commercial construction. This led to a prolific list of high-profile buildings like Crabtree Valley Mall, the Raleigh Civic Center and Convention Center, North Raleigh Hilton, Highwoods Business Park, and the Sheraton Imperial Hotel in RTP. But Roddy also believed in the importance of education and dedicated his time and influence to improving education, joining the Board of Governors for the University of North Carolina System and the Board of Trustees for Peace College, Shaw University, and Ravenscroft School. He also helped form the Wake Education Partnership. Roddy's ambition of seeing Raleigh put on the map has certainly been fulfilled, but he believes the best is yet to come.
My dad's Roddy Jones. He was born in 1936. I think my father was being born in Raleigh, raised in Raleigh, knew a lot of people. My grandfather was born in Franklin County and came down and kind of got his start a little bit later. So my dad's influence really was in just kind of going into the community and working together with others to aggressively grow the company. His focus really was on business and business development, and it started at the construction company, but then he spread his wings, and so he was heavily involved in anything that was promoting Raleigh. His father taught him at a very early age just to always give back. And so, when my grandfather eventually set up the CBB Jones Family Foundation, he had succumbed to Alzheimer's and really was not in a position to do anything beyond, he was really struggling. And my father really kind of took the mantle from that. And at a very early age, he was very focused on education. My grandfather had not been able to go to college. He also really believed in that everybody ought to have a chance at higher education. It's not just the four-year university that matters. So he was a big proponent of Wake Tech at a time when I think the community college system really wasn't as appreciated as it is today. And ultimately that culminated with his involvement with the Board of Governors, the University of North Carolina Board of Governors. And so he was the first non-Carolina graduate to lead the Board of Governors. When I think of what he's done for Raleigh, I think in a lot of ways it's overdue that he gets the credit that I think he deserves. He's very soft-spoken. He does a lot of really good work behind the scenes. He's a champion for our community. I've had the opportunity to work with him. I did not get the opportunity to work with my grandfather. So I've been able to see how my dad is as a business partner and how passionate he is for things that keep this community afloat. And I'm just a direct beneficiary. I look back on anything and everything I have in my business life, and I know that it started with my dad.
What better time to recognize the accomplishments of our next inductee, Marjorie L. O'Rourke. Having worked across the span of 5 decades as a Guild volunteer and eventually its foremost historian, Marjorie's efforts have helped preserve the history of one of Raleigh's most notable landmarks, Dorothea Dix Hospital. Marjorie's affiliation with Dix Hospital began with her volunteering to help provide patients with clothing and personal items. and building a picnic shelter for them, helping to restore the cemetery. She led the charge to get the property's Spring Hill House on the National Register of Historic Places. In the 1980s, Marjorie was approached about writing the history of the hospital, and she spent the next 20 years doing so. Her book, Haven on the Hill, is a scholarly achievement archiving the history of mental health care here in North Carolina. Today, at the young age of 95, Marjorie remains actively involved in the legacy commitment of Dix Park, of the Dix Park Conservancy, working to incorporate and memorialize the history of Dix Hospital into the park and its programs.
Marge O'Rourke came to Raleigh with her husband and then spent the next 50 years as a very dedicated researcher, volunteer, so forth, involved primarily with Dix Hospital. And so she was involved there as a volunteer, part of the guild there, and then after the hospital closed, she continued to be very involved. But most importantly, she wrote a book. Took her 20 years to do it. That's really the go-to book for anything you want to know about Dix Hospital. And in light of the fact that we're working on a park on the Dix campus, Dorothea Dix Park, her book has been incredibly valuable in terms of rooting that park in its legacy, going back to Dorothea Dix. In terms of what ended up getting built here was a hospital that was quite large and quite innovative in its day. And the hospital that is the main building on what is now Dix Park campus would have been the largest building in North Carolina for several decades. Marjorie would really like to see some form of museum there that is related to mental health. I think it would be a real home run personally to see that. I think people would be fascinated to learn how far we've come in terms of dealing with issues related to mental health, and yet see how far away we are from it being a disease that's considered no different than an appendectomy or a sore foot. We've come a long way, and I think that Dix Park allows for that story to get told because the buildings are still there.
Our next inductee, Harvey A. Schmitt, a 21-year veteran of Raleigh's Chamber of Commerce. Harvey came to Raleigh in 1994. Immediately, he began leading a host of chamber initiatives that have had long-lasting impacts on downtown Raleigh and far beyond that. Harvey was an early supporter of rejuvenating downtown, including his advocacy for this building, the Raleigh Convention Center, in 2008. He also played a lead role in gathering support for the PNC Arena and recruiting our beloved Carolina Hurricanes. Harvey further created the Regional Transportation Alliance, RTA, to encourage the advancement of transportation solutions in our ever-increasing growth, as well as the Downtown Raleigh Alliance, which has been a catalyst to much of downtown's renaissance. The list of awards he's won and the boards on which he's served is really endless, but it only goes to show that Harvey's contributions to the city of Raleigh have made our community the thriving city that it is.
It is certainly my privilege to nominate Harvey for the Raleigh Hall of Fame. Harvey came to Raleigh in 1994 to serve as the president of the Greater Raleigh Chamber of Commerce. He did that for 21 years, and during his tenure, when you look at really the growth of Raleigh and Wake County, certainly Harvey and the Chamber had a great role in all of that growth and all that we've accomplished. With Harvey, he knew that the Chamber, being the voice of business, had a critical role in helping to move public sentiment around major initiatives. I think Harvey's always been one that looked at the quality of a community and knew that you needed good education, both public schools as well as technical education, higher education. He knew you needed a strong downtown core, and when he came here in '94, our downtown looked very different than it does today. He knew that you needed strong infrastructure, and so I think as the leader of the business advocacy group in Raleigh, I think he really knew that we needed to make major investments. And the way he did that was to engage people in conversation. He loved to win, but he certainly knew that you had to win by building consensus and getting others to work with you. I do think his ability to bring people together for conversation, it was really very important, and even today the Chamber is sort of the place where multiple constituents of public schools, county commissioners, city council, other NC State all come together on a regular basis just to talk about what's going on. And I really think Harvey's skill at being able to bring people together was just remarkable.
Defining what it means to be a public servant. J. Blount Williams has served in several roles. First, Blount is CEO of Alfred Williams and Company, a Raleigh-based business founded in 1867, and has overseen its expansion across North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. But outside of his work environment, Blount is most passionate about the improvement of our public school system. He served as chairman on the Wake Education Partnership, president of Broughton's Capital Foundation, and co-chaired the 2018 Wake County School Bond Campaign. Blount is also active with Wake Med and serves on the Dix Park Conservancy Board. Blount continues to juggle his active community service while also helping renovate Blount Street by his work on the Christ Church renovation and an 1878-era house that he and his wife purchased and preserved. Whatever Blount becomes interested in next is sure to be the beneficiary of his passion and dedication to his community.
I know of very few people who have done more for Raleigh or Wake County in so many different areas than Blount has. He's touched so many different aspects of the community, and in so doing, so many different people, as opposed to so many people who have just been focused in one particular area. Blount's been far-reaching in all of his involvement and his contributions to this community. Blount's family is a very old Raleigh family. They've been here for generations, and Blount was born here and grew up here. And he went away to school for a little while, but went to the University of North Carolina, got his MBA at Wake Forest, and at that point was called back by his father to take over the company. And I think he's done a great job of balancing some of the expectations that would come from being part of the family, the Williams family, and with his own passions and his own particular interests, while building the company into the great company that it's recognized as today. he has touched so many areas. A lot of people who receive this award so deservingly have one or two areas of focus, but Blount is so unusual in the different areas and entities that he's been involved in Wake County, and as well as running such a vibrant business and growing it to be the great business it's grown.
Our first organizational inductee into the Raleigh Hall of Fame is Habitat for Humanity of Wake County. Recognizing the need to keep up with Raleigh's unprecedented growth, Habitat of Wake County's focus is providing affordable housing for those families who qualify to pay for an affordable mortgage at no more than 30% of their household income. And when families pay too much for housing, they aren't able to pay for other necessities, things like food, health care, and education. Habitat serves not only homeowners from our area, but others who have immigrated to our city to work here and make a better life for themselves and their children. We are grateful to have Habitat for Humanity to support and house valued members of our city.
There's a great need in our country for safe, affordable housing. In North Carolina, over 750,000 families do not have safe, affordable housing. 13,000 homes do not have indoor plumbing. 9,000 homes do not have heat in the winter. Raleigh is not exempt from these issues. Raleigh-Wake County Habitat has done an amazing job in helping solve that problem or address that problem in Raleigh. Habitat of Wake County has helped over 1,700 families get into safe, affordable housing. And this is a life-changing event for the family. Well, my first experience with Habitat was with my church, and we just helping out building a house. In 1991, Habitat asked me to build a house in a week, and I did that. In 2002, Habitat Wake decided to do a new program called Home Builder Blitz. And we agreed to build 12 houses in a week in Raleigh using 12 different home builders. Habitat of Wake County involves many companies, many churches, and many other philanthropic organizations, and it involves NC State to help build a house. And this year, more than 14,000 volunteers participated with Habitat. And it gives each volunteer a sense of what's really important in this task, and it's providing a safe, affordable house to the family. And they typically meet the family because the family's out there working with them. So I think it enriches the life of all of these volunteers as well as enriches the life of the people that benefit from the house.
With us tonight to accept the medallion on behalf of Habitat of Wake County is CEO Bill Ahern. Bill, congratulations. Our second nonprofit inductee is the Tammy Lynn Center. Celebrating its 50th year, TLC has provided care for thousands of children identified with or at risk for developmental disabilities. TLC began with the love and compassion of 3 families whose desire to provide their children quality care and support services led them to their mission of empowering individuals of all abilities to live their fullest life. TLC has grown to 7 group homes, providing critical early intervention services and tens of thousands of respite care hours to bring relief to those who are caring for people with profound disabilities. TLC has now broadened its services to include children and adults with autism. Whatever the next 50 years holds and beyond, the Tammy Lynn Center will be committed to caring for and advocating for members of our community who may have otherwise not had a voice.
The center's mission started in 1969 with the needs and the dreams of 3 families whose children had no options for services that they needed for some fairly severe developmental disabilities with medical complexities. So these 3 families started our mission, and it began as a Mother's Morning Out program, half days in the basement of a church, and progressed to a residential program for children with very complex needs. Those families wanted their kids to be here in our community rather than somewhere else, so that they could be part of their daily lives, visiting whenever the opportunity presented for those families. The center is a leader in very many ways, particularly under our CEO, Holly Richard, whose leadership has been critically important for developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities across the state. The center is active in policy development, which is critical for families who are at home with their people, for funding for the field of developmental disabilities and intellectual disabilities. Those things make a difference for families and for the community at large, because whatever advocacy is effective will impact all people with developmental disabilities and all of the providers who serve them, regardless of what services that they're providing. So the leadership, the consistency of services, the commitment, the dedication, the integrity, things that everyone should have an opportunity to access, to be members of their community and to be involved with their home community. The center is unique for the services that it provides in North Carolina. It's a very special thing that we have access to services like these in Raleigh.
Thank you for joining us in congratulating Holly Richard, President and CEO of TLC. I think she's rather well known around here, as she accepts the Raleigh Hall of Fame medallion on behalf of the organization. Holly, thank you so much for your continuing and your meaningful voice. Our first of 2 centennial inductees is Reverend Morgan L. Latta. Reverend Latta was an educator, a pioneer, a community leader whose contributions endure today. Born in 1856, an enslaved person forbidden to read, Reverend Latta went on to study at Shaw University and eventually established Latta University, a school to educate children of formerly enslaved people at Raleigh's Oberlin Village. The university closed in 1922. However, 2 acres remain as the Latta House and the university site in Oberlin Village. Reverend Latta overcame overwhelmingly difficult hardships, as recounted in his autobiography, The History of My Life and Work. His remarkable life and ability to overcome these obstacles to help improve the lives of others make him certainly a well-deserved recipient of tonight's honor.
Reverend Morgan Latta was very persistent, someone who really exemplifies perseverance and transcendence of your circumstances. He's someone who started out with very humble beginnings and was able to rise above those circumstances to achieve something that's really extraordinary. Reverend Latta was born in 1856 on Fish Dam Plantation. He was born as an enslaved person. When Latta was about 5 years old, we know that his father had already passed away, and emancipation came when he was about 9, and his family became sharecroppers on the same land that they worked as enslaved people. After Latta left the Fish Dam area, after he left being a sharecropper, he was able to work his way up and be admitted to Shaw University. This was about the 1870s that he attended Shaw. After Latta finished his work at Shaw, he received 2 teaching certifications, and he became a teacher and taught all around what we know today as the Triangle. He also became a reverend and realized that it was important for him to help the other people in his community. In 1892, Latta goes to Oberlin Village. He purchases the land for Latta University. And the purpose of the university is to uplift and educate the children of enslaved people, ultimately with the vision and the hope to improve their economic circumstances so that they can rise above their beginnings just like he did. Latta understood that education was so important because we know from his autobiography that his father could read. And I think that that must have been passed down to him from his father. There must have been some kind of benefit. Of course, it was dangerous because it was illegal to know how to read, but there must have been some kind of world that was unlocked for his father that he could see made a difference. And he wanted that for himself, for the rest of his family, and for his whole community.
Accepting the medallion on behalf of Reverend Latta, please join me in welcoming Brandy Newworth, who is the great-great-granddaughter of Reverend Latta and chair of the Latta House Foundation. Thank you for being with us tonight, Brandy. Finally tonight, I am pleased to present Joseph Joe Winters Sr. as our second centennial inductee. Mr. Winters is almost 2 inductees in one. One as serving as Raleigh's second African-American police officer for 34 years, earning a distinguished Tar Heel of the Week recognition with his partner, and another as an organizer and promoter of some of the most influential musical acts of the day, thereby bringing a segregated community together through the power of music. Whether a dedicated officer or a visionary entrepreneur, Winters left an indelible legacy on the community and the culture of Raleigh.
Joe Winters led one of the most fascinating, if not the most fascinating, double life in the history of Raleigh, if not of any city in the United States. By day, Joe Winters was a police officer, and not just any police officer. Joe Winters was one of Raleigh's very first black police officers, starting in the early 40s. By night, he was one of the state's leading concert impresarios, bringing to Raleigh and the surrounding area, often to Memorial Auditorium, some of the very greatest pop music artists in America at a time when pop music was changing the culture, changing us politically. No one else in Raleigh history can claim that kind of dual identity. Joe lived an extremely full and rich life in which he served the public in more than one way. He was a public servant, obviously, as a police officer. He was also a public servant in that he was overcoming boundaries and inviting everyone to dance. And I can't imagine a better summation of a person's life than he invited everyone to dance. And Joe had the great fortune of seeing a lot of his vision come to fruition. So through the civil rights movement, he continued to be a police officer, and he continued to be a concert promoter. He retired in the 70s, and he lived into 2005. So he saw all these changes. He saw the complete integration of culture. He saw his protégés go on to do really great things, which was really important to him. I think that what Joe saw happening in the musicians he brought to Memorial Hall and elsewhere around North Carolina, that he began just to channel through himself in a very one-on-one manner. It was always about trying to lift people up, trying to bring the best out of people and move the culture forward.
Let's welcome Mr. Winter's son, Joseph Jr., to accept the medallion on behalf of Joe Winter Sr. Joseph, congratulations. Now, if you'll please join me in another round of applause for all the 2019 Raleigh Hall of Fame inductees. We'd like to express our gratitude again to title sponsor Capital Broadcasting and WRAL TV. Our celebration tonight also would not be possible without the additional support of our patrons and sponsors. We want to recognize them at this point. Our grand patrons, the City of Raleigh, and Julia and Frank Daniels, Jr. And our patrons, Alfred Williams and Company, the Angus Barn, Brown Wynn Funeral Homes, Dianne and Vartan Davidian, Davidson and Jones Hotel Corporation and Construction Company, Empire Eats and Empire Properties, CB Jones Family Foundation, Sheridan Imperial Hotel, O Temple Sloan Jr., Tri Properties, Williams Mullen, the Joseph Winters Senior Family, and YMCA of the Triangle. We are grateful to all of you for your support, and also grateful for the many other sponsors tonight. They are listed in your program. Please join me in another round of applause to express our appreciation tonight. Finally, this has become something of a tradition. The Raleigh Hall of Fame Board would like to share with you a song written by my predecessor, Bill Leslie, who is here with us tonight, as we know, about the city of Raleigh. Please watch.
Where the acorns fall, where the trees grow tall, great ideas form, here where hearts are warm, with hospitality and rich diversity, where you can grow to be your best. Raleigh, we love you, Raleigh, the lay of your land, your springtime so grand, spirit of your past, something we hold fast, and the hope for a bright tomorrow. We love you, Raleigh, the lay of your land, your springtime so grand, spirit of your past, something we hold fast, and the hope for a bright tomorrow. Summer is serene along these trails of green, laughter on the lawn, fiery autumn dawn. Universities and stately agencies, robust heart and soul of the New South. Home of champions
and celebration,
home of heroes,
large and small,
place of compassion
and interaction,
open hearts and open minds. Raleigh, we love you, Raleigh, the lay of your land, your springtime so grand, spirit of your past, something we hold fast, and the hope for a bride, the hope for a bride, yes, the hope for a bride tomorrow.
Doesn't that just encompass everything our city is about? Thank you so much for coming tonight. On a personal note, this is my first time here, and I can honestly say I am blown away by the company that I'm in. Restaurateurs, business developers, leaders in construction and philanthropy and hospitality, we are so fortunate to have all these leaders and leaders in the crowd here tonight. Our city is a better place for it. I'm honored to be a part of it, so thank you for inviting me here tonight. We are already looking ahead to next year's celebration, so please consider nominating a worthy citizen of Raleigh for induction in 2020. A partial explanation of the nomination process is included in the back of your program, and nomination forms are available on the Raleigh Hall of Fame website, www.raleighhalloffame.org. Should be simple enough to remember. Completed nominations are due in March of next year. We look forward to receiving your nominations. Thank you all for coming, and have a wonderful night.